Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video on this wonderfully rainy Saturday afternoon. Consequently, the heath is almost deserted, which is great. I think the weather forecast said a 100% chance of rain every hour for the next 3 to 4 hours. Not that heavy at the moment. There have been a couple of heavier showers earlier. So I've put up a tarp. Been enjoying this week. Second time I've been able to put up a tarp in 1 week. Happy days. Today's wine. It was a bit of an impulse purchase. I happened to be in Sainsbury's earlier this week. Don't often buy English sparkling in Sainsbury's because the selection is usually a little bit underwhelming. The prices aren't always great either. Waitrose actually bizarrely often has better special offers on stuff that I actually like. But I found this, which slightly piqued my curiosity, and I've got a feeling I've had a bottle of it before at some point. Did I possibly even do a review on the channel? I'm not entirely sure. So it is their own brand. Sainsbury's Taste the Difference, their sort of slightly posher branding for some of their products. English sparkling wine. And the name of it is Ellercombe, which I suspect is just a completely made up place name. Maybe there is a place somewhere in England called Ellercombe, but I'm a little bit sceptical whether that really exists or not. It's a bit hard to actually get to the bottom of which part of England this comes from and who really makes it. I did a little bit of detective work. It does say on the back somewhere that it is produced by a company called Rolling Green Hills Limited. If you Google for them, one of the first results that comes up is the company's house page for Rolling Green Hills Limited. I've got a feeling they also make Morrison's own brand English sparkling wine. And there isn't really any web presence other than this company's house page for Rolling Green Hills Limited. But tellingly, the sole person associated with the business, the director, is Eric Herima. Any of you who are familiar with English sparkling wine will recognise that name because he is, of course, the owner of Nyetimber. Slightly controversial figure in the industry. From having spoken to some people who work in the industry, I don't think everyone is a fan. I shall not provide an opinion either way, but I do like Nyetimber as a brand, as a wine. I really like their winemakers. I've had a few interactions with Brad Greatrix, one of the two head winemakers, him and his wife Sherry, the two head winemakers at Nyetimber. I think they're very nice people, so who knows. So my suspicion is this Ellercombe, Sainsbury's Taste the Difference English sparkling wine, which I think is sold as an NV here. I can't see an age statement on it. My suspicion is this might actually be made at Nyetimber's winery. Certainly Rolling Green Hills Limited doesn't give the impression of a business with a unique footprint of its own. I'm guessing they use probably, we don't know this for sure, but probably Nyetimber's winery. The wine might even be made under the instruction of Brad and Sherry. We don't know. This is all speculation. But if I had to guess, I would imagine they buy the grapes in from somewhere else. There are a lot of grape growers in England that sell on their produce to other producers, so it's never sold under the vineyard name that it comes from. I think particularly in Essex, which is by all accounts a very well suited part of England for viticulture, produces very good quality grapes, but often they get sold on for whatever historical reason to other producers. So I suspect this is probably a secret side venture of Nyetimber that they don't want to brand explicitly as Nyetimber. They're making the wine, I would guess. A winery is a big commitment, so I doubt a company like Rolling Green Hills Limited that only has one director and no presence on the web, I doubt they own a winery of their own. So they're obviously using some other company's winery. And then it gets sold into supermarkets. Probably for most of you, you will have found all of that really boring. And the key point, which would make this an attractive proposition, is that it's probably one of the most, is it the most or one of the most cost-effective, one of the cheapest English sparkling wines I will have ever featured on the channel. I can't get the foil off. Making a real pig's ear of this. It doesn't help that under the tarp here it's a little bit dark. I can't actually see very well. I hope you can see me okay. With the Nectar price discount, I should add, you know, being a middle-aged man, I hate all those supermarket point card schemes. I only use them when I get a direct discount on the spot for something. With the Nectar card price, it is £18, which if this is genuinely, and this is, as I say, speculation, if this is genuinely a wine made by Nyetimber, obviously it's not going to be to their usual very high standards. But if it is a sort of Nyetimber on the quiet, then £18, an absolute bargain. Sorry, the lighting is now a bit imperfect because I'm sitting under this tarp. If it has a greenish tinge, it's probably just the light shining through this thing. I would say, I'll try and hold that out, it's a sort of straw gold kind of colour, quite pleasant first appearance there. What do we have on the nose? Pre-swirl, I would say, not a huge amount going on. Probably is going to need a bit of swirling, but initially sort of appley. Yeah, apples, apple skins, a tiny hint of perhaps Granny Smith, something like that. A little bit of green apple sort of aroma. Not initially noticing much in the way of autolytic character there. I have a feeling from reading some notes about this wine elsewhere that they don't age this as long as Nyetimber is typically aged. Again, it's speculation that this is made for them by Nyetimber. Don't take my word for it. Bit of swirl, and yeah, that comes to life a little bit. I'm getting a bit of lemon now as well. Bit of lemon curd, some slight creamy notes there actually as well. That could be at least a hint of something pointing towards autolytic character. There might be just a little suggestion of brioche, a few crumbs of brioche sprinkled over the apples and lemons there. Yeah, actually now quite creamy. Yeah, it's not so subtle anymore. That's nice. One of the house styles, one of the key things that they always do, I think almost always do at Nyetimber, is malolactic fermentation. So they would have taken that green apple malic acid and turned it into lactic acid, more like yogurty, creamy sort of notes. And that nose at least gives me the impression of a wine that has had malolactic fermentation applied, but you really notice that most on the palate, I think. Again, that's speculation. But yeah, initial nose, all quite pleasant, classic English sparkling aromas there. Apple, lemon, bit of some autolytic character, bit of creaminess. Not bad, not a bad start. On the palate, met with a nice bracing bit of zing, which slightly calls into question my guess earlier that they have done full malolactic fermentation. I think it's a thing that you could do partially. You can do 50% malolactic. But the nature of that zing, it's a bit more citrus than appley to me, that particular style of acid. I think I'm tasting citric acid there rather than malic acid. But that was lovely and fresh and bright. And that's kind of what I want from something that is presumably meant to kind of exemplify English sparkling. I would imagine for many people this could end up being one of the first English sparklings they try, something they pick up experimentally in a supermarket like that. So I think they have a little bit of a duty to the industry to do something that is somewhat representative of the broader style. Has a nice texture from the bubbles there. Getting a little bit of a sort of biscuity sensation, which is something I often notice in Nyetimber. Again, really crisp, love that acidity. That is very, very drinkable, I think. Really quite nice, and particularly for the price. I think I probably neglected to say that I believe this is classic champagne grapes. Sometimes you expect those sub £20 English sparklings to be using alternative grapes, sort of more old-fashioned English wine grapes, which can be a little bit easier to grow and therefore somehow trickle through to make a cheaper wine. But I believe this is classic Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. We don't have a grape breakdown, but it is at least those three grapes. Coming back to the nose again, I think I'm getting a little bit more of that brioche, autolytic sort of character. Again, apples and lemons, fruit-wise. More nice thing on the palate. A little bit of slight mineral character, maybe. Yeah, I would say that is good. There are definitely hints of something Nyetimber-esque in there. Once again, that is completely all speculation on my part. I could be wildly wrong. It's clear that Eric Harima is involved in this, the owner of Nyetimber, but this could be a completely distinct enterprise from the making of Nyetimber. He might have contracted out the winemaking and contracted out the grape growing, and he just happens to be doing it as an individual side project, not involving any of the other people or infrastructure of Nyetimber, but it seems likely to be. If you've already got a fully functioning English sparkling wine making business, why not reuse at least some of it? So it feels to me like a slightly sort of pared down version of Nyetimber. I would say it doesn't have quite the same finesse. There is this really elegant lemon patisserie sort of character with Nyetimber, and it has lovely balance, and everything's just really, really well integrated and great texture. And there are hints of some of those things here, but it's not quite taken to that level that you get in, well, just a bog standard classic cuvee from Nyetimber. I'm not even talking about their fancier, more expensive wines. Just in the regular, everyday Nyetimber wines, you get that kind of finesse. This is thoroughly decent, very drinkable, quite respectable, I would say, but just not quite at that level of finesse. I imagine it's had a little bit less time on the lees, possibly, and one or two other corners may have been cut to bring the price point down a little bit, because £18, I know that is the Nectar price offer, but presumably Sainsbury's can still make a profit, so £18 is quite incredible by English sparkling standards. I'll note that, of course, in that section of Sainsbury's, there's loads of Prosecco and stuff there, so it's still, there is admittedly a wide gulf between that and that. Prices have crept up a little bit these days, and I often cite Prosecco as being, supermarket Prosecco can be £6 a bottle, but I think you still can get £6, perhaps £7 a bottle Prosecco, at least in that Sainsbury's where I was. So there is still a big gulf, even between this, the cheapest possible English sparkling. It's still triple the price pretty much. But I would far, far rather be drinking this, even if it's a case of one of these a month versus 3 bottles of Prosecco a month. No thanks, personally. And I think that does tell you something about the style of English sparkling. It's bold, it's got really decent acidity, it's fruity, and it's fresh and lively and vivacious. And I love all of that. It's really nice. Pretty happy with that. It's probably been a long babbling video for a supermarket wine, but I thought it was interesting to see what that was going to be like. I think that is really, really respectable. I would buy that again, to be honest. Well, I'm going to sit here for now, enjoy being under the tarp, enjoy being out in the rain, enjoy the relative lack of people, apart from those 2 people who did walk past just now. Enjoy some more of this very, I think, reasonably priced English sparkling wine. Cheers. Just thought you might like some rain dripping on a tarp footage. I'll shut up so you can hear it. Just a quick addendum, because I was curious as to whether or not there was a real place called Ellercombe, and I suspect even if there is, this wine isn't necessarily from there, but Googling for Ellercombe, spelt the way it's spelt on the bottle, all you find are pages about the wine, and looking on Google Maps, no results at all. Looking on OS Maps, there are some similarly named places. Ellercombe, Allercombe in Devon. Ellercombe, more like Ella, the name, Ella, is apparently in Torbay, somewhere near Torquay. Ellercombe in Somerset, and there's another similarly, Ellercombe, Elli, in Devon as well. All quite southwesty, all of those places, but none are exactly Ellercombe as it's spelt on the bottle, so it is clearly a made-up name. And again, I suspect the grapes for this wine are bought in from probably a bunch of contract growers dotted around the country. Could be some in Essex, some in Kent, some in Sussex, some in Hampshire. It's probably a little bit all over the place. But all of that said, it does taste like English sparkling wine. I think they've done a good job of making a representative wine, and it's good for the price particularly. I'm very happy to be drinking this. Not bad at all. Cheers.